Not too long ago, I was talking to someone within our crew, and they said something that really bothered the shit out of me. And we were talking about jobs or the lack thereof. And it eventually came around to the disparity and inequality that we have when you compare AS people to neurotypicals in terms of jobs. And I asked him, oh, hey, do you want me to do a video about this? And he said something to me like, I don't really care about that activism stuff. I just ignore that and try and live with it, or something to that effect. So with that, I'm going to tell you exactly why people need to start giving a shit about AS people being accepted as human beings, about activism, about autism advocacy, about accurate representation of AS people, all that stuff. And it seems to me that some people get the wrong idea about this, and they think it has something to do with being offended. No, I really don't. I really don't give a shit about being offended. It's not about that. What I do care about is having the same opportunities that NTs are afforded. What I do care about is not being judged based on prejudices and stigmas that other people have. And as for reasons, for starters, our unemployment rate is at a whopping 80%. Not 18%, but 80. And, well, depending on who you ask, though, it's anywhere between 60 and 80%. Now, when you compare that to the unemployment rate overall, is what, 6%, 5%, if that. And so there is indeed quite a large discrepancy there. And could you imagine if the overall unemployment rate went to just half of what we have? 30% unemployment, 40% unemployment. There would be riots in the streets for sure. Just to put it into perspective, just how dire our employment situation is, I got an email from someone in our crew, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, obviously, just a small excerpt of it, okay? And over the past few years, I'd considered 3 possibilities for myself, including basic computer data entry, basic kitchen hand, and refilling shelves in a supermarket. Now, this guy who's sending me this email, he is over 40 years old. He's over 40 years old and would be overjoyed to finally get a job filling shelves in a supermarket. Now, does that sound right to you? And we're in this situation because of the incredible amount of prejudice and stigma that people have. It does lead to potential employers being too scared to hire us, and unfoundedly so. And when the truth of it is, AS people would be a huge boon to any boss, even better than NTs in some regards, given the chance. Hans Asperger himself said, able autistic individuals can rise to eminent positions and perform with such outstanding success that one may even conclude that only such people are capable of certain achievements. Their unswerving determination and penetrating intellectual powers, part of their spontaneous and original mental activity, their narrowness and single-mindedness as manifested in their special interests, can be immensely valuable and can lead to outstanding achievements in their chosen areas. Now, does that sound like we should have an 80% unemployment rate? Does that sound like we should be paid less than a neurotypical that does the exact same thing? Then there's this whole eugenic elimination business. That's where some truly monstrous people desperately want to wipe us out with literal eugenics. And because it sounds just like something a James Bond villain would do, you have people going, what? That doesn't sound right. Well, have a look at a program called Missing. It's where this hate group called Autism Speaks is claiming that we're missing and is developing some sort of cure for being missing. And no, we're not missing. We're right here. Yeah. When you have hate groups pushing for research into human biology, that is some scary shit right there. Being human isn't a disease that you should cure. Let's say for argument's sake that they end up developing a paternal test. We actually have a similar situation for something called Down syndrome. When a paternal test for Down syndrome was developed, abortions absolutely skyrocketed. Now, because of the inordinate amount of prejudice against us, people view us in a similar light to Down syndrome. Because of all the disgusting and vile stigmas you have piled on top of us, there are people out there that think we would be better off dead, as amazing as that sounds. So what do you think would happen should someone create a paternal test for autism and Asperger's? We can already see the results of what happens. We can already observe how people react to finding out someone they know is autistic or Aspergian. Being born as we are is viewed by a lot of people as something worse than death. Given the chance, they would not hesitate to wipe out such a valuable part of humanity. You say, oh, well, how can people do that? Because of the prejudice and the vile stigmas, we've been dehumanized to the point where we're no longer viewed as human, but instead we're viewed as this horrid disease or defect or something along those lines. If you still don't care about this activism or representation stuff, ask yourself, are you comfortable with the autism spectrum being wiped out? Are you comfortable with autistic and Aspergian people never existing in the first place? You yourself may be on the spectrum or know someone that's on the spectrum. Are you okay with them never existing in the first place? Then you have the disparity within the education system, where some of us are forced into remedial education, where we remain unchallenged and your brain just basically rots, and that's considered an education for some reason. And to be put in remedial education, well, that makes it sound like they can't handle the work of mainstream, right? Well, no, not at all. But because you have all this prejudice and misrepresentation, because of all these disgusting stigmas we have against us, we're thought of as brain dead, drooling invalids. Then this next one, most people don't like to talk about because it's well, quite frankly, embarrassing. And yes, it's also difficult for me to talk about, obviously. But let's say, for example, you have a room full of neurotypicals and you ask them the very embarrassing question, when's the first time you had sex? And for most of them will say about their late teens. We'll give a number in their late teens. And now, If you, on the other hand, have a room full of AS people and you ask them all, this is adults, obviously, who here has had a girlfriend before? You'll get quite a different answer. The reality is that most AS people will have their first date in their 30s, sometimes even in their 40s. And then you'll have people that try and explain this disparity, and they'll explain it as, oh, they're just not interested until they're that age. And oh boy, does that make my blood boil. And if you're autistic or Aspergian and you've been trying to get a girlfriend for decades, and someone says that shit to you, oh man, you can't tell me that doesn't piss you off. Then you have articles about this sort of thing, and they talk about us like we're fucking aliens. No, we're human beings with the exact same feelings, wants, and desires as other human beings. And the reason this is happening is because people, by and large, are not comfortable with us hanging about. They're not comfortable being around anyone that's even slightly different to themselves. And it's not just the opposite sex, don't get me wrong. Then from this, you have something even more troubling to deal with. You'd actually be surprised just how quickly neurotypicals can go from being uncomfortable to being hostile. And it's further compounded by these vile and disgusting stigmas we have about us, and all these gross misrepresentations. Another problem that these vile stigmas have created is with our medical care, or lack thereof. When you visit the doctors as an Aspergian, you tell them about your problems, obviously, and then they simply don't believe you. And in turn, they don't treat you. It's appalling but true that there are actually many doctors out there that when they see the word Asperger's or autism on your file, they'll then think that's the same as Munchausen or hypochondria. That is, they think Asperger's is akin to lying or pretending. Or they see normal Aspergian behaviors, such as not making eye contact, and assume we're lying. They'll assume all sorts of nonsense about us that just isn't true. For example, a friend of mine, Rosie, she went to the doctors for a medical problem that she had, but not only did they not believe her, they then wrote all sorts of disgusting things about her in her permanent medical record. They wrote all these horrid mischaracterizations that were completely unsubstantiated, based on complete nonsense and laughably false. And the next doctor she saw would then look at this medical record and also think that she was lying. And it got to the point where she couldn't even get medical care for her kids because of this permanent record that had smeared her. This is also something I've experienced personally. For the longest time, I've had problems with acid reflux. I've also had problems with my legs and my back. Basically, I can't sprint for more than a minute because the pain is just that excruciating. And it's gotten to the point where just sitting down for a time is painful, with the only reprieve being lying down. And people say to me, why don't you see a doctor about that? Well, I have. I've been to see many doctors for over 4 years, and I still don't have a diagnosis. The first doctor I visited, he told me, that's just shin splints, that I just need, bed rest and take it easy for a while. I should be fine within a week or two. And then I debunked his reasoning for shin splints, and I asked him, what else could it be? And he just says to me, there's no magical cure for shin splints. And that was over 4 years ago. And it's steadily become worse and worse over time, and increasingly more painful over time. And no matter what you say, they just don't believe you. And it's because people are highly prejudiced of us. We do have quite a lot of these vile stigmas attributed to us that just aren't true. Now, ignoring these people that spread around this garbage, it's not going to make the problem go away. If you do ignore them, the only thing that will happen is it will make it easier for them to propagate these vile stigmas and pass it on to even more people. Then, of course, there are numerous hardships to our childhood. Some having better or worse than others, of course. I hope it does get better. Because I hope that no child has to experience being constantly told that they're stupid or feeling that they're less than human. I hope that no child has to be abused by their family. I hope they don't get become locked up by their family or tortured by their parents because they're not neurotypical, or killed out of kindness before they get a chance to grow up. Right, but that's my little rant over. See you guys. See you later. See you later.